Hi, hello, my name is Goma Joseph. I hope you've all been having a great day so far. If you are new, I welcome you. And before I go on with this video, I just want to go ahead and let everybody know that the heart and soul of my YouTube channel is a true crime YouTube channel. So actually, after you're done watching this video, if you actually want to go ahead and see some true crime content, don't worry, I have enough. Now, as for everybody who actually watches this channel for my true crime content, this gives you guys an opportunity to actually know me on a personal level. So I don't like sounding cliche. I'm really not trying to use this video to sound cliche. So, for this specific video, you clearly see what it's about. And before I go on with my little retrospective or actual testimony, just so you know, I'm honestly going to try to make it as short as I possibly can because I am 100% sure that this is going to be a long video, so get fed up. Also, I want to let y'all know that this is not a video used to bash the school in any way. Like, it seems like the stuff that's out there, that really talks about Bob Jones University either calls it this perfect place or this very awful nightmare that just traumatizes people. This video will be used to speak about the good as well as the bad, and my perfect balance. But plus, I plan to make it my only video about Bob Jones University. People literally are obsessed with spending most of their day bashing the school that they left or got kicked out of years back, then I feel like that's just the weirdest thing ever. Like, y'all are too big and too grown to be doing stuff like that. Like, I really wish I had that much time on my hands. And most of all, this isn't a tell all. Like, there's no way to humanly possibly tell all that happened at my time in Bob Jones University in one single video. So recently, I've been reflecting on my choices that led me to where I am right now. And college in general, pretty much in my opinion, plays a big part in that. And I just happened to go to Bob Jones University. So this video is made to keep future students who are thinking of enrolling, and even current students from making the same mistakes that I did while I was a BJU student. So most of all, I just wanted to give you an authentic, I guess raw, look at how my experience as a student was. And since it's May, I know this is graduation time, so congratulations to all the graduates who are graduating, and I pray that God provides you all with a successful future. Here we go. So it would make sense to actually start this video with how I began my time at BJU. So let's go ahead and give a little bit of backstory. This is definitely not going to be my life story. So, trying to make a long story short, BC, before college, I was a public schooler, and with public school, there is not that many Christians around me. Not that public school was always this dark, depressing, evil place all the time. Again, it was never a dull moment. Like, it always seemed like something crazy did happen every single day, and I was, me and plenty of my, senior classmates were eager to leave. And, the thing about public school is that they always try to make college the only option, basically making it look like you have to go to college straight away, and not much of a mention about gap years or anything like that to really think about what you want to do with your future. Because honestly, I haven't really told many people about this, but for the longest time, I really wanted to go to an HBCU when I was younger. And if you don't know what an HBCU is, it's a historically black college or university. And if I couldn't go to an HBCU, then I wanted to go to a college that was really diverse, because the high school I went to was really diverse. And what I'm gonna say next might make me sound like a jerk, and honestly, I might actually sound like a jerk throughout the entire video. And it's gonna make me sound really bad, but this is 18-year-old Gomer that we're talking about. Yes, my high school was pretty diverse, so the people I mostly surrounded myself with looked like kind of look like me. So this isn't gonna be, once again, my life story, but I'll explain how I pretty much heard about BJU. Yes, I did go to public school, but I attended and still attend a fundamental independent Baptist church, which has grown to be, diverse as the years went on, and praise the Lord. But my school just had, more melanin, and that sounds so much worse than I intended. But that's just the truth, okay? That's just the truth. I've got school 5 days a week, church. I attend church 2 days a week. I'm here. I'm a young person. I've been saved since I was 11. I'm trying to grow as a Christian, and of course, I have a lot of growing to do. And even at school, even though I'm trying to be different, I'm trying to really live for God as the as good as I can. But I still kind of have this public schooler mentality, if that makes any sense. Now I'm gonna fast forward a bit when I was a BJU student, because I remember mentioning it to somebody that I went to public school, and they're like, "You don't really sound like a public schooler." And I was like telling him, like, I mean, I didn't tell him, but in my mind, I'm like, why would I be like any normal public schooler? Because in Romans 12:2, it says, "And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind." I was supposed to be different from those around me so that they would at least notice a difference and at least, try to seek God, because I wasn't I mean in high school I wasn't really the best at sharing my faith. Like I think I was at least better at it later on in my years, but it took a lot of work and it is not easy. Back to how I heard about BJU. So throughout the years, people in my church had attended and graduated from BJU, so that's how I heard about it. Again, growing up, I wasn't trying to go to Christian school. I wanted to go to, an HBCU or a really diverse school. Because to be honest, when it came to Christian colleges in my early years, one question filled my mind. Again, this is gonna fill yeah, this has been one question that filled my mind in my younger years. Like, where are all the black people at? Like, where are they at? But then, somewhere around 11th, 12th grade, God got a hold of my heart in regards to going to a college. And this one question popped up in my mind: how am I gonna get to church, and how am I gonna find a good church? At the time, it seemed like really good biblical churches were hard to find, so I had to put my feelings aside and go to where God would take me. Because I knew if I were to go to college, then being part of a good church would help me to succeed as a college student. At first, PCC, Pensacola Christian College, came to mind because it had the lower prices. It was a nice facility in Florida where it's always warm and I hate the cold. But hey, I did not go. Okay, that wasn't gonna happen. Plus, PCC doesn't really offer their students a church to serve or to minister at or to build bonds with other believers like that. And not to downplay PCC, but it is what it is. Right now, I'm gonna go ahead and compare my expectations of BJU as a freshman to my reality as a BJU student as a freshman. So I got accepted into the school, and choosing a major was the hardest thing on earth. Like, again, high schoolers, in my personal opinion, high schoolers really shouldn't be pressured to go into college right away after high school, because not every 17 or 18-year-old knows exactly what they want to do with the rest of their lives. I was a creative guy, and obviously I still am. As you can see, I got the whole YouTube thing going. And of course, you already see in my subscriber count, I'm thankful for them, but it's not popping like that. So creativity with the YouTube and with the self-published books, but I thought that going into business could possibly help with my creativity somehow, which was a very stupid decision, and I'll explain why later on. But I did graduate with my associates in business, but it just took me later, and I'll also explain why it took a bit later. Y'all, I didn't even visit the college before my actual first day moving in. I just thought to myself, like, I already know a good bit about the school already. I spoke to my admissions counselor constantly. And admissions counselor, if you are actually watching this video, like, thank you for taking all the time to listen to my questions. Thank you for everything. So I didn't feel like I needed to go to orientation because I did my homework. At least I felt like I did my homework. And arriving at campus was a good start. You had these, welcome committee helpers. I don't know if that's what you really call them, but that's what I'm gonna call them. They were taking my belongings out of my parents' car, and I felt like they treated me like royalty. Freshman me was like, oh snap, like I don't even have to carry my bags by myself. Like, go ahead and carry everything. Like, thank you. And listen, I don't come from money. My family is not rich, so I don't know where this baller bougie mentality of mine even comes from. Now that I'm moved in, I've got these two roommates, both seniors. One already knew from church back home, and one other guy who was really chill when I first met him. So one thing about me, I am claustrophobic, and we're supposed to fit 3 guys in this dorm room. Thankfully, the roommate from back home pretty much guided me to how to get my things together for the room. Honestly, I feel like that's one of the rare occasions where I did listen to him, because he would specifically tell me to do something, and I would specifically not listen to him. The following day, my roommate from back home showed me around campus, and when you get used to it, it's not a huge campus, but for me, I'm a hot ghetto mess. It was easy for me to get lost. But if you're not a hot ghetto mess, then you'll be okay and you will not get lost on campus. But praise God, I got used to campus pretty quickly. But now that I'm settled in this new school, it's a completely different atmosphere from the public school I attended, and I did have certain expectations coming to Bob Jones. I thought this would be a place to escape weirdos. I thought mostly everyone would be mature, that it would be easy to stay away from petty drama, and that if I minded my business, everybody would mind y'all business. But let me tell you, my expectations were thrown out the window not long after I got there. So you know how I pretty much started my time at BJU. Now things are going to be out of order during my time there, so I'm just going to focus on topic to topic. So you'll hear certain stories as I share my thoughts. So in reality, Bob Jones does have weirdos. And actually, it was labeled the most unusual school in America, so I mean, I guess it's kind of fitting that way. Let me tell you, like, one time, like, sophomore year, I'm getting my dinner, it's nighttime, I've got my to-go box, and I see this guy staring into the empty seminary building. Like, he literally like has his hand behind his back, and he's just looking at the empty building. Like, the seminary building has its lights on, but he's just looking at it, and there's nobody inside. I think this is the weirdest thing ever. I'm giving him the side eye while he's not looking, and you know, I'm just walking towards my dorm, and I'm just like, okay, I mean, I guess you do you. But let me remind you, this is nighttime. No one else is around. I kid you not. The moment I walked past him, he looked at my direction and started walking towards my direction. If I did not love food, I would have thrown my to-go box in the air and started bolting towards my dorm room. But I love food. I will die for food. I firmly held on to my to-go box and sped walked towards my dorm so I wouldn't drop my food. I wasn't looking back or anything to see if he was following me. I was just focusing on getting into my dorm room without having my neck sliced open. Later on, I'll share another time where I felt like my life was almost taken away. So overall, if you're coming to Bob Jones University, don't expect it to be this bright, sunny place with no issues. Yes, people will annoy you. People will be immature. For instance, the term Boge. I am absolutely serious when I say this. When I first heard about this word, I honestly thought it was like a white people term that I just never knew about. Like, I honestly thought it was the white version of bougie. And if you don't know what bougie means, so bougie, it pretty much means a stuck up person. So honestly, I think that's what I asked someone. If I asked somebody if Boge was just a white term for bougie, but they explained that Boge was someone who was like a tattletale, or somebody who followed all the rules and expected all the other students around them to follow the rules. I don't ever remember using that term with anyone, and honestly, even to this day, it just sounds so stupid to me. Like, I even heard that the term was called bojo for like, as in regards to like Bob Jones, but still like we're in college and we're making up names now. Like, if somebody is annoying or being extra, just say that. Y'all are college students, y'all are growing up, and y'all are just too big and too grown to be calling other people names. Another thing that I found really weird and that really caught me off guard was that people, I guess, didn't really have the boldness to tell me something to my face. But joke's on them because I found out. There were two instances. One person told my roommate from back home, and honestly, let me just go ahead and get this out the way. If I wasn't roommates with him, I'm 100% sure very, very few people would have known who I was as a freshman. And because, I always ended up on his Snapchat. I always ended up on his Snapchat at the time. And, he was voted student body chaplain, he was up there. So of course I guess it was just natural to just for people to actually know who I was. But anyway, um they just explained to my roommate how annoyed they were with how I promoted my first book. Since I'm promoting my books in a very different way now, I can understand their frustration, but I to just explain why I was doing all this stuff, because when I was a freshman, like, I was bold. Like, every student, faculty, like the school would know about Never Gonna Be the Same, which is my first book. And I was a bit too confident because that's just who I am. That's just who I was. But you know what? I feel like I was open to constructive criticism. Like, if I knew for sure that I was wrong, go ahead and correct me, and I will try to go ahead and fix my mistakes. But honestly, if I didn't think I was wrong, then yeah, I wasn't gonna listen at all. But again, why would you tell on my roommate and not tell me? The same roommate tells me how somebody else thought that I was demon possessed. Again, I am a born again Christian. I got saved when I was 11 years old. That demon possession in my life is not possible. I promise y'all, there is no evil spirit living inside of me because I am saved. The Holy Spirit dwells within me. Listen, if you're watching this, roommate, I'm not bitter with you. I'm just trying to go ahead and share examples because my roommate never told me who these people were. And I did ask him, like, but when he was not telling me, I seemed pretty cool and calm about it on the outside, but on the inside, I am this crazy psychopath, basically. So inwardly, I thought that these two people were punks, and since they couldn't say anything to my face, like, that just made them look worse to me. So I think it's best that my roommate from back home didn't tell me who these people were, because I tell you no other thing but that I would have definitely had a chat with them. But overall, these unexpected realities is going to be a common theme throughout the video. BJU has a lot of pretty good majors and programs. Once again, I took business and I just assumed it was a major I could get any job with after graduation, but the problem was that I really had no idea what to do with it. Like, for my future, I knew I wanted to be my own boss other than self-publishing books, but I just didn't know what that exactly was. I assumed that being in that major would help me, but by sophomore year, I was fed up with it and I ended up hating this major. I really only liked one class, which was home-based business strategies, and the rest, I knew that I made a huge mistake choosing that major. When I realized that I made a mistake, I tried to switch into journalism and mass communication, but your boy's GPA was not on point, so I was stuck with business throughout my time there. But I did end up taking journalism and mass communication courses after seeing like how hands-on the program was when they were making like their Christmas radio program. Now, I'm at a point in my life where my career, because I'm a hands-on person, so my career is very hands-on, and I'll explain what that is at the end. Once I took the journalism and mass communication courses, and again, I really want to go ahead and market this major because it was really really great. Like, you don't even have to go into journalism. You don't have to be a journalist to actually, take this major. Like, this is a really cool major. Like, I knew for sure that it was something I should have taken when I arrived at Bob Jones because I just loved every single course, even public relations, which I was having trouble with for the longest time. So when you see that you're struggling with your major, but if you believe that you can be successful in it, like, keep going. But when you know deep down that it's just something that you just won't pretty much be happy with as a career, I just say change it as soon as possible before it's too late. So now the school is filled again with many different programs, and many students have found great success after graduating with, from these programs. Most of the teachers and staff are terrific, and if you are struggling, they will absolutely help you. I don't know why I didn't get help from my teachers like early on, like I should have. Like, that was my mindset before graduating high school, but I wasn't really the best at balancing my life. Like, I didn't listen in freshman seminar, obviously, about making schedules, so I did me, which was wrong. Do not do you. Please make schedules. If you see that you're struggling, make appointments with your teachers. Go to the Student Resource Center. There are people who will definitely help you out, especially for like classes like English 101 or 102. Like, I know that in it, there's like this little writing center because you don't have to pay for that type of tutoring. Like, they'll just really help you strengthen your essays. And I should have went to the Student Resource Center for my earlier essays. I had to write for those classes, but I got a lower grade because I didn't and I couldn't understand why my essays just weren't cutting it. As for expository writing, which I needed to take since I was in the process of taking journalism and mass communication, if I wasn't getting help in the Student Resource Center, I kid you not, I would have bombed that class. Just like I bombed economics for the first time for sophomore year. Funny thing about economics class, when I took it again, the teacher, who is a really nice guy, he told the class that we would love it. And I told the person next to me, man, I loved it so much, I had to take it twice. But I wasn't trying to bomb any more classes, so I got help for expository writing. Two things about that class. The person who sat next to me always complained about getting B's on their quizzes. Yet, me and other people were like struggling, with like C's and D's on these quizzes. And I'm telling you, I'll just look at him like, I would just really give him the side eye, but he was a really cool guy. Another thing is that my teacher would always try to make jokes, and no one else would laugh but me because I have nervous laughter. Because nobody else was laughing, I was laughing. And I'm telling you, some of the teachers really had me cracking up. So I lied. I actually like two business courses. I liked home-based business strategies and some form of like management class, especially since it was not easy, but it was helpful for me to pass because we never had exams, only papers, and I assumed that I would always fail after turning the paper in, but praise the Lord, like, I'll always pass writing those papers. Anyway, he spoke about his experience as a Liberty student and talked about how the youth pastor that for the church that he attended would keep on buttering him up, as in saying how the youth pastor was always trying to get him to go to the Wednesday night services, but my teacher felt like he needed to focus on school, and my teacher goes like, stop buttering me up, like, it's weird. Later on, I find out he's been buttering up 16-year-old girls. That is a topic that's definitely not funny, but I was so caught off guard. Again, I do have nervous laughter. It took everything within me not to laugh out loud. You see, like, you just can't say that stuff around me without any warning. Overall, be your teacher's best friend in a professional way. I'm not airing out any former teacher's dirty laundry. I'm not going to go ahead and air out any students' dirty laundry. You will be professional with the teacher, and the teacher will be professional with you. Not only that, but take advantage of study groups. If it wasn't for me studying with a friend, I don't think I would have passed public relations, but praise God I did. When it came to the classes, coming from public school, I really appreciated how the teachers at Bob Jones did pray before every class. Obviously, it was something which I've never seen before, and I was thankful for it. As for the class attire, again, it was something that I was, not used to. It was very different. We always at Bob Jones had to dress professionally for class, like polo shirts tucked in, and wear professional pants like cargo pants or khakis. It always had to be professional, and they were also big on not using your phone in class. Literally, like some of the teachers would even kick you out for it. Like for me, one time I was in one of my business courses, and a guest speaker who was like a former student of my teacher was sitting in the back row. I had my phone on my desk so that my teacher would see that I wasn't using it, but I saw a text from one of my brothers, and they knew I was in school, and I just got this random message. So I started getting anxious. I started like wondering what the message was, and I didn't want that to be the distraction throughout the entire class because I was wondering if it was an emergency. I like literally forgot I texted him the night before, but he just happened to get back to me the next morning. I sent him this quick text, then went back to paying attention in class like I should have been doing. Later on, this guy tells my teacher. My teacher's like on his way to go ahead and sit in the back while allowing the guest speaker to speak in the front. But he's like, Mr. So and so, before I speak, I just want to go ahead and say that a couple of students at this specific desk were using their phone during class. In my mind, I'm like, Monsieur, well, I try to play it off and not look at my teacher while he sees my phone on my desk. Because again, he's looking at me like in the center, like not looking at me, but like looking at my table, and he sees my phone on my desk. So he's looking at me, he's looking down at the desk, and I'm just like avoiding eye contact with my teacher because it's like, oh snap, like I was contemplating on apologizing and explaining the whole thing, but at the end of the day, like I knew for sure it was a family emergency. Like I felt like it was a family emergency, and I wasn't using my phone for a social call because my teacher came to an understanding that if emergencies occur, to take the call. So I was just waiting for my teacher to just email me something, but I mean, he never did. It took a while to get used to this new classroom setting since I was always used to wearing casual attire to class and using my phone in class. And I'm not saying that using my phone in class was a good thing, but since the real world required you to dress professionally when you went to work anyway, I honestly didn't mind it much, especially when you could wear casual attire for the rest of your day when your classes were finished. Besides, I had more casual attire than class attire at the school anyway, so there were times I honestly didn't care to remember what I wore to class. So one time I'm like walking in the hallways and I pretty much bump into this guy I know, and he's asking me, "Did you wear that yesterday?" I look at him and I'm like, no. Then he just like looks up and down at me. I'm like, okay, weirdo boy, remember what people wear every day, weirdo? So that doesn't mean, it doesn't mean that the school didn't have casual Fridays. They did every now and then. I really wish that they would have had it every Friday though, but they started doing that like later on in my freshman sophomore year. Since I'm on the dress code, I really felt bad that the girls were pretty much put on a higher standard of dress code than the guys because I honestly believe that we should have been held to an equal standard. Like the guys should dress modestly and the girls should dress modestly as well. And even during sports or casual attire. Like for instance, in freshman year, I had this friend who was in my sister's society, so I was gonna see the game, and I brought a mutual friend with me. It took some convincing, but I got to convince her that she could just bring the food that she had and just eat it at the game. Sadly, the wind blew all of the food away, so I felt really bad. And I think I bought her Lunchables. I know for sure I bought her something that could like really help her out throughout the rest of the day. So that's what I did, and at least I bought it after the game was over. But I mean, now I'm questioning to myself, oh wait, because I think we were waiting for the game to be over so that our friend could come back. And here's the reason why our friend left. Because when we arrived, we noticed that our friend is being talked to by some girl. This girl is a part of student life, and I believe that's student life where like the students make sure that the other students are following the rules. At first, we didn't know what our friend was being like pretty much scolded for. So when we were about to walk over to her, my friend is tapped on her shoulder. Then the same girl from student life, is talking with her and even calling on her supervisor. So our friends leave, and we're just confused as to what happened. Later on, we find out that first our friend was told to change her clothes. She was wearing sweatpants, which I guess looked like leggings. I didn't see it, so she changed to the shorts, which I did see. And when she came back, she was told that her shorts were too short, and she was like telling them like, "I'm not changing." She literally said like, "No, I'm not going to change." So I clearly saw, like, I was there and I saw what my friend wore, and the shorts were up to her knees. Again, I came from public school. I felt like I knew what inappropriate shorts looked like, and she was not wearing anything immodest, but the student life people felt like it was. Later on, it seemed like the girls had some type of upgrade because they got to wear pants to class, and I can imagine that it would be awful for them to wear skirts to class during winter because I can't imagine. So, hey, good for them. Speaking of weather, I literally thought it would never get cold in South Carolina, but I was sadly mistaken. I hate the cold. I love warm weather. I just had a lot of misconceptions about the South in general, but I'm not gonna get into that because I don't have time for that. So, of course, since this is a Christian college, we had campus chapel. We had chapel every Monday to Thursdays and society on Fridays. So before campus chapel, we would always say the creed, and again, I don't have time to say the whole thing, but before recording this video, I looked at it because I honestly couldn't remember the whole thing. Overall, Bob Jones University is a non-denominational Christian college, and the creed was pretty much said to show that those of us who are genuinely saved are connected to our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Most of the time, Dr. Pettit would preach. Him and Dr. Bob will be the only people I mention by name because they're out here like that. Like, they even have like a Wikipedia page. So, but there would be other guest speakers, like Dr. Bob, other men who taught Bible classes at the school, or special preachers from different churches. During chapel, they were pretty big on you not being on your phone during the service, which makes complete sense. You're there to hear God's word preached, and you're there to grow closer to the Lord. And most of the time, whenever I was on my phone, most of the time I used my phone to read from the Bible. Really, the only time I ever texted during chapels wasn't when the preaching wasn't when there was actual preaching. It was like when when certain like videos were played, or when every once in a while when there was like a special service that didn't involve preaching, I just used my phone just to reach out to somebody at that time. If I was wrong, then I'll admit it, but what's done is done. I did also enjoy the Singspiration services of chapel, like hearing the student body sing praises to God together was something that was truly remarkable. So one time I had this really nice chapel buddy who said, "It's great that you sing very bold and very clear." And of course, what, I told her, praise God, but like in my mind, I'm like, that's what's expected of every Christian. Like growing up, I learned that from the Bible, from God's word, that we sing a joyful noise to the Lord. So why give God anything less? We would also have different sets of chapel buddies. So they would assign us seats and switch them from time to time. I guess I would consider myself like a social guy, so I always got to know my chapel buddies. Most of the time, they were pretty cool. A few were a bit shy and like quiet, so I wasn't really trying to traumatize them with how social I can be. Except for one time, like I got to know my one chapel buddy on the left, and she was like this really cool person. There's this guy on my right, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm Gomer. What's your name?" My chapel buddy on my right is like, so me and my chapel buddy on my left are like, so I turn around to my chapel buddy on my left. I'm telling her, I guess he didn't hear me. So I wasn't gonna repeat myself. Thankfully, I was just having a conversation with someone who I just became friends with. And she was new to school. I was explaining the whole switching of chapel seats and chapel buddies to her. And I told her that if any chapel buddy of mine is rude, then I would just ruin their life. Thankfully, for my sake and for his sake, again, I'm a psychopath. One thing I am thankful for is that situation, and another thing I'm thankful for is that I never got placed into the gold section, which is the front row of the chapel. My neck would have never survived looking up like that every single Monday through Thursday. Chapel was held in the FMA, which stands for Founders Memorial Amphitheatrium, I think. And in every door in the actual like chapel auditorium itself, there were ushers at the door, and there were plenty of people I knew who were ushers, so there was no issue with me saying hi to them. But even with the people I didn't know, like again, I'm a social guy, I'll just say hi to them because they're ushers and they're at the door, and I make eye contact with them, so I would say hi. But again, I'm crazy, and there's this one person. Like I feel like there are like a couple of people who would just like I would just wave at and just say hi, but they would just like have these stone cold faces and just ignore me, and I'm like, okay, either I just kept on working or I just gave them the side eye while I went to find my seat. What I later found out in my freshman year was that the ushers couldn't use their phone on the job at all, and I didn't even know. Honestly, I didn't even know they got paid. But at that, well, it just didn't matter to me because I wasn't really paying attention to stuff like that. And again, even if they did get paid, like I still would have never volunteered to have been an usher at the school. Like no, nothing would have convinced me to have volunteered to be one. And one time, there were teens from my church back home who came to the campus on a college trip, so I was planning on sitting with them. I was texting my roommate from back home, who was also an usher, and again, he did a lot of things there. I was asking him through text who the row supervisor was because I didn't know which store set he was at, so I was too lazy to get up and try to find him. And you know what? I think that's what they're called, the row supervisors, like the people who check to see if the people or the students are in their chapel seats. Thankfully, I was never assigned that role either. Now, my roommate, he doesn't get back to me until the chapel service is over. So like throughout the chapel service, like I really had no choice but to sit down on my seat so I wouldn't get any demerits for skipping chapel when I didn't skip chapel. He texts me, he's like, first of all, how are you gonna text me while I'm working? Second, how do you not know who your row supervisor is by now? When I saw that text message, I was like, listen, I don't want no smoke. I don't even remember responding to that text because in my mind, I just wanted to know because I didn't see somebody who had a sign on their chest saying that they are the row supervisor. To be honest, I didn't even know that was a thing. I honestly thought that there was like a camera like on the top ceiling showing that everybody was in their chapel seats. So I didn't even know that a row supervisor was the thing. So other than being an usher, there are plenty of opportunities for students to get involved with different organizations, even with um, those who focus on your major. Again, I didn't have time for that. Also, most people who worked as ushers and stuff like that, a portion of the student body kind of deemed them as fake. Now, I knew people who were involved with things, like that, and they were genuinely nice people. But there were other people who got involved with those organizations who just gave me a bad vibe, and not just because of that. Like, if somebody had like a specific demeanor in general, I just got a bad vibe, unless they prove me wrong. But of course, like many campuses, you do have a wide range of choices of where to work on campus to make money. My second semester, I worked as a freshman. I did work as a custodial person, but my schedule wasn't having that, so I never worked on campus again. If you think you can balance it, go ahead for it. If not, then just remember that you're there to get your diploma and get out of there. Or stay there forever like certain people have. Staying at Bob Jones forever was not an option for me. There were certain jobs that people had in the dining common, which is also called DC, so I'll be calling it DC for time stuff. So from what I heard, that's where you really get paid. When I first came to the school, coming from public school with a nasty cafeteria, like there'll be flies all around, even seeing like, there are like mice running around a few times at my public school. So seeing the DC was like an upgrade. The food there could be hit or miss. I don't know if things changed, but when I was there, the place wasn't like a five-star restaurant or anything like that. But most of the workers at the DC were really great, kind people, especially those at the front desk, like to protect their identity and their privacy. Miss K, Miss E, and Miss B. Now, for the life of me, I can't understand why certain people gave Miss B such a bad time because she was just a very sweet lady. She was just as sweet as the other two. If you didn't want to eat at the dining common and had money to spend, you went to the den where you could buy like Papa John's pizza. And please don't eat a whole pizza in one night. There's a fridge on the bottom of your dorm. Trust me, I tried it as an early freshman. Like every day was a day to turn up, and eating that whole pizza was one of the worst decisions I have ever made in my life, and it ended up being one of the most embarrassing situations of my life. So, other than that, let's get back to our topics, or you could buy Chick-fil-A, and again, I had my Bruins bucks, so later on, I would use my Bruins bucks wisely, which is something on your ID card that gives you like $100 to $200 for each semester. So one chapel service a week where I didn't have a class right after chapel, I would use my Bruin bucks only on Chick-fil-A because Chick-fil-A got me through it. If you're looking to be involved with ministry opportunities, there are plenty you can minister at juvenile detention centers, schools, certain ministry fairs, and even societies would have outreach opportunities. If you are going to get involved with outreach opportunities, please just try to balance them. Like you're not some superhero, you can't do everything. Balance. I know that counseling is involved at the school, but it seemed like people really only went there if they got in trouble for something or someone was worried about a specific student. To me, and I could be completely wrong, it seemed like students went because they had to. Honestly, I don't really know much about the counseling at BJU, honestly, except for the negative, which is very unfortunate. So I can't really give a balanced view on it, if that makes any sense. If you're athletic, there are the Bruin teams like basketball, soccer, volleyball, baseball, and I even heard that there was like a bowling team. They still have one. The thing about the Bruin athletes was that they had this reputation of people who were jerks. But I knew certain Bruin athletes, and the ones who I knew were really cool people. But again, there were certain Bruin athletes who I did get bad vibes from, so I would just do my best to avoid them. So speaking of athleticism, I have none, while my brothers have all. In campus, there is a boys' gym and there was a girls' gym. Clearly, I am a boy. I did not, I mean, that's a lie. No, not a lie that I'm not a boy. Just a lie that I never went to the boys' gym. Because I only went to the boys' gym once because I felt bad for something and I'm like, okay, I'll go ahead and do this thing. And I tell you, after going to the gym and working out, I promised myself to never go through that torture again, especially in the morning. As for dorm life, it was very, very interesting. Like, let's talk about roommates first. I'll have a lesson about roommates by the end of this topic. Y'all already heard me mention my one roommate quite a few times, but my other roommate was just as awesome. And not that my roommate from back home wasn't awesome, but it was just that my other roommate didn't care what I did in the room. While my roommate from back home, even though we already knew each other, learning to live with each other was a challenge for both of us. And because of course I didn't make it easy for him either. We basically had different views of the world. Also, that first semester, even the following semester, my roommates were off campus for the entire weekend, and having the dorm to myself, especially as a freshman, felt like paradise. Because when people knew that I was alone in my dorm room, they were like, "Don't you feel alone?" And I'm like, no, I feel at peace. So the following semester, when my one roommate left, he was missed, and it did give me more space. I got my own desk instead of sharing one. Now, the sophomore year went smoothly, except when I failed economics. But my two roommates were really chill. Pretty much, I could do whatever I wanted without either of them being bothered. I was the first to arrive that year, so I got my own desk and picked the nicer bed. Funny thing about those first 2 years, at least one of my roommates left the dorm room the second semester, and at least one of them got engaged the same semester as well. I literally thought it might just happen every year, but it didn't. Now, my third year, which I consider it to be my sophomore junior year, when you fail a class, it really messes up your GPA bad. I was like a super sophomore the first semester, but became a junior the following semester. You don't want to ever be in that position. This was also the year where I was trying to switch to journalism and mass communication. Actually, I was trying to go ahead and switch into journalism and mass communication the previous semester, but I think I only took like 1 or 2 courses that semester. I wasn't prepared for how crazy that year was going to be with my roommates. I found out that I'm going to switch a whole dorm. Like, I was in Ironside the first 2 years, then they placed me in Johnson for some reason, which I'm happy for. Johnson was the bigger, more convenient dorm anyway, so I did consider it, a step up. I find out that I'm going to be in Johnson through the group chat that my roommate, who was a year below me, set up. At first, and listen, sophomore roommate, if you're watching this video, I promise you, I do not hate you. I do not hate you at all. Because at first, through that group text, I thought I wasn't gonna like him because he decides through text before the semester starts that he gets to pick the nicer bed. Then my other roommate, who I knew since freshman year, agrees as long as he gets his own desk. In my mind, I'm like, hold up. For me, it's always been first come, first serve. But again, I knew how crazy I was, so I decided to just calm myself and give my sophomore roommate the benefit of the doubt when I met him. So when I met him in person, he turned out to be a really awesome guy. Now, of course, you're always going to be different from your roommates. Everybody is different. But I'm telling you, all three of us were polar opposites. You have my sophomore roommate, who was the calm, peaceful one who kept things nice, clean, and tidy. Almost trying to be like Yanla. As for my junior roommate, again, I knew him since freshman year, but I didn't expect him to be as crazy as he was. And no, I'm not over exaggerating. This man literally duct taped my hand to my chair. And I didn't just let him duct tape my hand to my chair. I fought as hard as I could, but sadly, he succeeded. It took scissors to get me out of that situation. This child was a maniac. I didn't care how big and fat he was. I was gonna go toe to toe with him whenever I needed to. Let this be a lesson to everyone watching this video. I don't care how big or strong your roommate is, fight your roommate with all your might. There is absolutely no way to fit all of the craziness from that year in this video. Literally, one time, my big junior roommate blocks the door when I try to get myself some air. But when I tried to push him away, but his big self made me bounce to the ground. I kid you not, I almost ended it all, and I opened the window and I was about to jump. Ask my roommates, they'll tell you that it's true. It's impossible. Like, every single day, there was something. Now, my last year at BJU, I decided that I would just finish school with my associates in business. Don't get me wrong, it did upset me that I didn't pursue journalism and mass communications because I really did enjoy it, but I knew that I really needed to take time to figure out what to do with the rest of my life. This time around, I found out that I would only have one roommate, again, more space, who was a freshman, and Listen, I was trying and I was hoping that he wouldn't see me as one of the main people who would give him guidance because I couldn't even get myself together. The nice thing is that he did email me. Now, I never went out of my way to email my roommates. I'm the type of person who wants to interact with them the moment I see them, but messaging your roommate is the nice thing to do. I just never reached out to them before meeting them. When I arrived, it was pretty late, like 8 p.m., so I would usually arrive earlier, but I had no choice but to arrive at that time. So I didn't even meet the guy until the following day, which was a Sunday. I saw that he had his things together that Saturday night, but I just assumed that he was out with his family or something. When I met him, he turned out to be a really cool guy. Pretty much the very minute I introduced myself to my freshman roommate, I told him that I was gonna bounce, and you know what, which honestly kind of put him in a, with that information, he was kind of in limbo a bit, not that much, but kind of in limbo for a bit because it pretty much put him in like an unwanted position because he didn't want to be alone in a dorm room. And I literally did pray. I asked God that God would provide a good roommate for him after I left. God answers my prayer, and I find out that my freshman roommate gets a good roommate after I leave. So though my last semester was a mostly peaceful time in my dorm room, my roommate did have friends who were other freshmen who would always come into the room. And I feel like most like upperclassmen would be annoyed by it. Honestly, I couldn't have cared less. I was gonna leave the school and I was trying to make a peaceful transition. Some of them were pretty cool guys, but it seemed like something crazy would always usually happen whenever they came in. One time, I come back into my dorm room after a discipleship group, and I'm about to throw out my trash because the trash can was in my roommate's closet. So once I open the closet, I find my roommate's friend in the closet, causing me to scream like Homegirl from Psycho. I asked the guy why he is in my roommate's closet, then he explains that he tried to scare my roommate. Well, you know what? Hey, he failed at scaring my roommate, but he definitely succeeded in scaring the crap out of me. Thankfully, me and my roommate did get along before I graduated with my associates to see where God was taking me next in my life. Moral of the story, you're living with your roommates. Take the time to know them, even if you don't like them. What I haven't mentioned was the rules which were laid out in the handbook. So long story short, I definitely didn't follow all of the school's rules. No, I was not smoking. No, I was not drinking. No, I was not going out of my way to do what I believe that a child of God, that a Christian has no business doing. Besides, I feel like Bob Jones Sr., who was obviously Bob Jones, the founder of the school, was pretty tight with God. I say this because it seemed like nobody really ever got away with smoking or drinking on campus. Not that I know of. Because throughout my time there, I believe, this is just my personal opinion, I believe that back in the day, Bob Jones Sr. prayed that God would always expose those students for doing stuff like that, and it seemed like God answered that prayer with no issue, in my opinion. Speaking of the Jones family, I would pass by that bridge, and I forget what that bridge, for the life of me, I forget what that bridge is called, with the little fountain and like the cemetery in the center, but I would always, walk past there. I mean, everybody had to, because, you had to get around. So in the center, like I mentioned, the cemetery, it was where it wasn't a big one, obviously, like it was a tiny one, but let me go ahead and stay on course. The Jones family, the founders, they were buried in those graves because you have Bob Sr., his wife, Bob Jones Jr., and his wife. At first, it was just a bit eerie walking past the graves of the founders' family. But I soon got over it. Like, it was their decision to be buried there. That's fine. I finally got the courage to actually, look at the graves because I've always just been pretty curious for some reason. So back to the rules. So the rules were laid out in the handbook, which I don't remember reading all the way through, even like at least not in freshman year, but definitely throughout the rest of the years, I never read the handbook. I never read the updates or anything like that. Um, because I knew that there would be updates, but I just didn't make time to go ahead and read from the handbook. So I just signed my name. I believe they had like a little paper like on the bottom floor to like write down your name to sign that you agree with the terms. And I just moved on with my life from there because actually I didn't even know how to even find the handbook. So, but I know that there are plenty of people who complain about the rules and how when you would get caught doing something, you would get demerits. And I know for sure that if you got 50, you'll have to pay like $50, which would be sent to a ministry. And it wasn't always like that. They pretty much changed it, a couple years after I went to BJU. But by the end of the day, like, what is complaining gonna do? Like, complaining is obviously not gonna solve anything. Like, either you're gonna follow the rules or not. And I wasn't gonna waste my precious moments of my time complaining. That's a lie. Of course, I complained about how hard classes were, and I know that during my freshman year, I was really trying to video chat some friends back home, but it was difficult too because the Wi-Fi for video chatting was blocked and I couldn't understand why I couldn't video chat with anybody in my dorm room. But I found a way around that, so I just put my big boy pants on. Besides, y'all need the rules because I swear, every semester there will be times when I would go to the bathroom and I would see people not flush after peeing and even pooping. That is nasty. Like 2 year olds know how to flush the toilet. Y'all are college students. Y'all have no excuse. I'm telling you, either A, I was so close to either throwing up or I was so close on going off on my hall demanding to know who didn't flush their toilets after peeing or pooping. Y'all are just nasty. And that's why BJUs got all these rules. BJU don't believe in you because y'all don't take care of your responsibilities. Just nasty not flushing. Anyway, to keep the students up to date on what was happening on campus, we would have hall meetings, which I was never in a rush to go to. I was always on Haitian time with those because if something was really important on campus, I was pretty sure that they would just email me anyway. Of course, like I never like skipped a hall meeting, but I was just never eager to go on time. I honestly just waited for them to just notice that I wasn't there and that they'll just go ahead and call me. But I would say that freshman year I made the mistake of assuming that hall meeting was once a month. I remember taking a shower and of course I would always cover up myself obviously with a bathrobe because I had to go ahead and wear the bathrobe and maybe it'll feel all classy and everything. And all of a sudden, when I get out of the bathroom, I see all of the hall residents, grouped together in the hall. I'm like, oh snap, this is very, very awkward. And that's when I found out, oh snap, these hall meeting stuff is actually every week instead of every month. I also remember White Glove, which was once every semester or every year. I can't remember. But anyway, they would always make sure that the room was like nice and tidy. So we had to leave the room at a certain time for inspection. The first year, I made a mistake of doing my laundry that day because the laundry was packed. And not even on White Glove, I just hated doing my laundry there because it always took forever. Even after all that work for my first White Glove, I failed my first White Glove. 1 week every semester, different Christian high schoolers or homeschoolers would come to BJU for these competitions. This was something I did not have time for. The rooms would be packed, the campus would be packed, I would be claustrophobic. One year, I really, and you know what? I didn't want to do this just to be mean. I really wanted to do this to be funny. Like, I wanted to go ahead and scare the high schoolers by wearing a clown mask. I was so close to getting that accomplished, but it just never happened. And here's the thing, like, I understand that the high schoolers can be a burden, but please respect the younger guys. Like, they're young, they know not what to do. Also, I also heard about this story about like how some high schooler asked one of the BJU students where a specific building was, but then the BJU student told the high schooler that he didn't know. Like, okay, there's no reason to be absolutely disrespectful to these little guys. Like, again, like you can be kind to them. I understand that they can be a burden, but that just gives you no right to just go ahead and disrespect anybody like that. And no, just because you want to respect them, it doesn't mean that you can't check them. Because there are plenty of times you are the older person, they are the younger person. You gotta teach them that they shouldn't do certain things. Like one time when one of my high schooler, one of these high schoolers in my dorm room left his floss on my desk, which is extremely disgusting. And he wasn't in the room at that time, like he was just doing his own thing. But like he seemed like a very sensitive guy, so even if he was in the room and I mentioned it to him, I was just, you know what, I would at least try to be as calm as I can, but I was a bit concerned that if I said anything, he would probably cry. And I was not here for the high school tears. Plus, he somehow left his underwear on my roommate's desk, and though that was very nasty, I thought that was hilarious. Someone also left their charger on my desk, and I'm like, no, sir, not today. I took that phone and that charger right off my desk and charged it on the outlet wall. Like, no, not my desk, homeboy. There was also another time, and this happened twice. Not the same thing, but that same year with the whole phone on my desk, he, like the other high schooler, he would not wake up to his alarm. I would like call out saying somebody's alarm is going off, but nobody would turn off the alarm. So I'm like, I don't have the energy for this. I can't do this. I was trying to go ahead. I was laying in bed. I was trying to build the energy, and just when I was about to go ahead and turn off the loud alarm, I hear somebody knocking on my door. I'm like, oh my word, please don't let this happen. So this person who's knocking on my door, I'm trying to remember, did I open the door for him or did he open the door for himself? I think I opened the door for him. He turns on the lights and he takes the phone out of the high schooler's hand and turns off the alarm. And he's like, I can't sleep. I'm in the other room and I hear this alarm going off and I can't sleep. I'm like, oh my word, I couldn't take it. And then the next day, the same high schooler, he cannot shut his alarm off again. So I'm like, oh wait, please, do not let this happen again. I jump out of bed. I literally shake this boy's body, telling him to go ahead and wake up so that the alarm would turn off and that nobody would be knocking on my door. So discipleship group. We had discipleship groups Sundays to Thursdays, I believe. And with discipleship group, there will just be, we would be joined together with different guys from like 2 other dorm rooms, and we would meet in one specific room where the discipleship group leader was and talk about the chapel message or what we learned at church on Sunday. So each group was always so different each year. I feel like the first 2 years I always gave like my discipleship group leaders a hard time because I'm so goofy and like complicated, but like the first year I didn't even look at my discipleship group. Like my body would like literally shift to another direction. Like at first I didn't even notice until they pointed it out, but once they pointed it out, it just pushed me to even do it even more. Because y'all mean to tell me I gotta go ahead and not only share my space 24/7 with 2 other people, but I gotta go ahead and share this space with other people for 20 minutes. Now this was 18-year-old me, 19-year-old me. I was thinking like, psych, like I felt like everybody was overstepping. But I realized how petty and wrong that was. So I began to shift my body towards their direction. And I try to get along with your discipleship group. If they don't like you, then that's their loss. Like, my life in general, if anybody doesn't like me, that's their loss because I'm funny. Okay, like, I'll admit it, like, I'm a narcissist when it comes to my jokes. So if you don't laugh at my jokes, then I think you're lame and that you need help. Also, every year, the entire dorm was required to go to Bob Jones Academy, which is for like the K to 12th graders, on the academy's field for a night to play games and get to know each other. I wasn't a big fan of that, especially when they one time had this popcorn prayer. Popcorn prayer, I guess it goes like, one person just automatically, one person shares a prayer, then another person just volunteers out of nowhere and says a prayer. For me, of course, hey, pray without ceasing. But I was like, you know what? I'm good. I'll definitely go ahead and silently pray and talk to God on my own. So as I'm praying, I try not to get distracted, and I couldn't help but hear how somebody made a prayer that the DC food would be good that year, and everyone started cracking up. This one dude from my society, and cool dude, and he's a big dude, and he goes off. Like, he stands up, he's saying, "What's wrong with you guys? We're talking to the Lord and you're saying these ridiculous things." Like, he went off, and I was here for it because he was right. Like, I was taught that prayer is something that you take very seriously, and you shouldn't be making jokes while talking to God. Like, this is God, the creator of the universe, my savior. And after this guy went off, everyone went quiet afterward, and I felt like Lupita at the last Oscars. Like, again, like, laughing and making jokes during prayer, like, y'all know better than that. So BJU also has two big events: Bible conference and artist series.